Alright, let's get real for a second. America has been the cool kid on the block for decades, but things are changing fast. I mean, I grew up thinking the US was the country everyone either admired or wanted to move to. But after years of traveling, researching, and let's be honest, messing up along the way, I've seen firsthand that not everyone is rolling out the red carpet for Uncle Sam anymore. I remember stepping off a plane in one of these countries thinking, alright, time to soak in the culture, only to be met with side eyes and awkward silences the moment they heard my American accent. And that's when it hit me, not everyone sees the US the way Hollywood makes it seem. Some places, they straight up dislike Americans. And this isn't just about politics, it's about real people, real experiences, and real consequences, from economic fallout to travel restrictions and even rising tensions that could shake the world order. The question is why? What's driving this shift? And more importantly, which countries are leading the charge? Now, before we dive into this eye-opening list, do me a solid, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the world's biggest issues. Also, we included a bonus country, so trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. Let's get into it. You ever had that one friend who used to be tight with you, always down to hang, always in your corner, until one day they just switch up? No explanation, no warning, just boom, they're rolling with a different crowd, acting like you never existed. Well, that's exactly what's happening between the US and Brazil right now, and honestly, it's a wake-up call. Now, I won't lie to you, there was a time when I thought the US had an unbreakable bond with Brazil. I mean, Brazil was always seen as the rising star of Latin America, a country that, despite its struggles, seemed to have a strong connection with the West. I even remember reading about US businesses pouring billions into Brazil's economy, tech, agriculture, even tourism. It felt like a win-win. But man, I should have seen the red flags, and so should Washington. Under President Lula da Silva, Brazil is going all in with China and Russia, and it's not just about politics, it's about money, power, and independence. Trade is shifting fast. Over 30% of Brazil's international business is now done in Chinese yuan instead of the US dollar. That's huge. Imagine being at a poker table where the US used to hold the biggest stack, and suddenly China's the new high roller. The agricultural war, the US slapped sanctions on Brazil's key exports like soybeans and beef, trying to flex its economic muscles. But guess who stepped in? China. They're scooping up Brazil's goods, keeping their economy rolling while cutting the US out. Military ties shifting. Brazil recently told the US, nah, we're good on a military cooperation deal, and chose Russia instead. Arms imports from Moscow have surged 45% in just 2 years. And trust me, when a country starts buying weapons from your rivals, that's not a good sign. And here's the real kicker, Brazilians just aren't feeling the US anymore. A 2025 Pew Research poll found that only 34% of Brazilians have a favorable view of the US compared to 52% in 2020. That's nearly a 20% drop in just a few years. And considering the cultural ties, the tourism, and the business relationships, that's a massive shift in sentiment. This isn't just a small beef, this is a major geopolitical realignment. Brazil, the biggest economy in Latin America, is making it loud and clear they're carving out their own path, and America isn't a priority anymore. And if Brazil, a country that used to be a strong US partner, is doing this, what does it say about America's global influence? Who's next? I want to hear what you think. Is this just politics as usual? Or is Brazil making a mistake by ditching the US? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get this debate going. Imagine this, you and your best friend have been tight for decades, you've always had each other's backs. You give them security, support, and a little extra cash when they need it. In return, they make sure your wallet stays full. But one day they stop answering your calls, start hanging out with your biggest rivals, and before you know it, boom, they've moved on. That's exactly what's happening between Saudi Arabia and the United States. And trust me, this isn't just a little drama, this is a global power shift. For decades, America had a sweet deal with the Saudis, oil for protection. As long as Saudi Arabia kept selling its oil in US dollars, Washington provided military support and political backing. But in 2025, that arrangement is falling apart and fast. Saudi Arabia is now selling a major portion of its oil in Chinese yuan. Oil exports to China have hit 2 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, oil shipments to the US have dropped by a staggering 40% in just 5 years. And if that wasn't bad enough, Saudi Arabia is doubling down on its new friendships. Here's where things get even messier. The US tried to pressure Saudi Arabia over human rights violations, freezing some military deals. But instead of making amends, Saudi Arabia signed a $15 billion arms deal with Russia. That's right, while Washington is hesitating, Moscow is cashing in. And let's not forget BRICS. In 2024, Saudi Arabia officially joined the economic bloc alongside China, Russia, Brazil, and India, further breaking free from American influence. This isn't just about oil, it's about global power. If more countries follow Saudi Arabia's lead and ditch the US dollar, America could be looking at a financial shakeup like never before. And this is just the beginning. Is Saudi Arabia making a smart move, or is this going to backfire big time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't go anywhere, the next country on this list is making an even bigger move against the US. Imagine being in a long-term partnership where trust has eroded over time. That's the current state of affairs between Turkey and the United States in 2025. Over the past 10 years, the US-Turkey relations have faced numerous challenges. Disagreements over regional conflicts, human rights issues, and military alliances have created a complex and often contentious dynamic between the two nations. Economically, Turkey has been diversifying its partnerships. In 2022, trade between Turkey and China reached approximately $38.5 billion, with China's exports to Turkey accounting for $34.03 billion of that total. This growing economic relationship indicates Turkey's strategic pivot towards Eastern alliances. The Turkish public's perception of the US has also evolved. While specific 2025 data is limited, historical trends suggest a growing skepticism towards American policies influenced by both domestic narratives and international events. As Turkey continues to redefine its foreign policy and economic alliances, the implications for its relationship with the US are profound. The evolving dynamics will undoubtedly impact regional stability and global geopolitical strategies. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the complexities of international relations and their real-world consequences. Think about this: what happens when a country long seen as a bridge between the West and the global South decides to take a different path? South Africa, once balancing ties between Western powers and emerging economies, is now leaning heavily toward new alliances. And trust me, the consequences of this shift are huge, not just for South Africa, but for global politics, trade, and even you, the viewer. So let's unpack this together. For years, South Africa played a careful balancing act, receiving investments from the US and Europe, while maintaining strong ties with BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and now with South Africa officially in the mix. But in 2025, things have changed. Pretoria is openly rejecting Western influence, pushing back against US policies, and tightening its grip on partnerships with China and Russia. A key turning point: South Africa refused to support the US-led sanctions on Russia following the ongoing geopolitical tensions. Instead, trade between South Africa and Russia hit a record high of $3.5 billion. With military cooperation growing at an unprecedented rate. Meanwhile, China remains South Africa's biggest trade partner, accounting for nearly 20% of its total exports, a percentage that's only increasing. For Americans, this means a shift in where resources are coming from. South Africa is rich in minerals like gold, platinum, and rare earth metals, materials critical for technology and defense industries. If Pretoria moves away from Western trade, the US could see supply chain disruptions and price hikes in everything from electronics to electric vehicle batteries. For South Africans, this decision brings both opportunities and risks. By deepening ties with BRICS nations, Pretoria is securing new investments, trade deals, and military cooperation, but it's also alienating traditional Western investors. Could this lead to economic instability, or is it a smart move towards long-term independence? That's the big debate. And for the rest of the world, this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The US is losing influence in key regions, and if more countries follow South Africa's lead, we could see a major power shift away from Western dominance. Now, I want to hear from you. Is South Africa making the right move by breaking away from US influence? Will this decision make the country stronger, or could it backfire? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'll be reading them. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive into global affairs, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Stay tuned. Imagine you're a small business owner in Texas relying heavily on affordable imports from Mexico to keep your shelves stocked. Suddenly, in February 2025, President Trump announces a 25% tariff on all Mexican imports, citing national security concerns over drug trafficking and illegal immigration. This unexpected move sends shockwaves through your operations, forcing you to reconsider pricing, suppliers, and even staffing. But just as you're bracing for impact, a glimmer of hope emerges. On February 3, 2025, the US reaches an agreement with Mexico to pause these tariffs for a month. This temporary reprieve is contingent upon Mexico enhancing its border security measures and taking more aggressive action against drug cartels. While this pause offers some relief, the uncertainty remains palpable. The broader implications of these tariffs are profound. Mexico, feeling the economic squeeze, accelerates its efforts to diversify trade partnerships. By strengthening ties with China and other Latin American countries, Mexico aims to reduce its economic dependence on the US. This shift not only alters the economic landscape but also signals a significant geopolitical realignment in the region. For individuals like you, these international decisions have tangible, real-world consequences. The cost of goods may rise, supply chains could be disrupted, and the economic ripple effects might impact local employment and community stability. We want to hear from you. How are these developments affecting your business or daily life? Do you believe these tariffs are a necessary measure for national security, or do they pose more harm than good? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Imagine you're Priya, a software engineer in Bangalore who recently secured a contract with a US-based tech firm. This opportunity promises not only financial growth but also a chance to collaborate on cutting-edge projects. However, as 2025 unfolds, the geopolitical landscape between India, the US, and Russia begins to shift, casting a shadow over Priya's aspirations. In early February 2025, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with US President Donald Trump to bolster bilateral ties through trade, energy, and defense deals. Modi aimed to mitigate potential US actions on tariffs and migration, even offering concessions and increasing imports of American goods such as oil and gas to appease the US. Despite these efforts, India's long-standing relationship with Russia remains robust. Bilateral trade between India and Russia reached a record high of $65.70 billion in the fiscal year 2023 to 2024, with India importing significant amounts of crude oil and exporting pharmaceuticals, machinery, and iron and steel. This dual alignment presents challenges. The US has expressed concerns over India's defense ties with Russia, particularly regarding the purchase of military equipment. Simultaneously, India has made it clear that it will purchase Russian oil only if supplied by companies and ships that comply with US sanctions, highlighting the delicate balance India strives to maintain. For professionals like Priya, these geopolitical dynamics have tangible consequences. Fluctuations in trade policies can lead to project delays, visa uncertainties, and economic instability. The tech industry, heavily reliant on international collaboration, may face disruptions affecting job security and growth prospects. We'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you perceive India's balancing act between the US and Russia? Have you experienced any direct impacts from these international relations? Share your experiences and opinions in the comments below. If you found this discussion insightful, please like and subscribe for more updates on global affairs and their real-world implications. Stay tuned for our next segment where we'll delve into another nation's evolving relationship with global powers. Imagine you're in a relationship with someone who's always called the shots, controlling what you eat, where you go, and even who you talk to. You've stuck it out because, well, it's comfortable, but one day you wake up and realize that their decisions are starting to hurt you, your needs aren't being met, and you're tired of being the one to always give in. That's exactly what's happening with Germany and the US in 2025. For years, Germany has been the US's reliable ally in Europe, but after the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Berlin's trust in Washington is starting to erode. You see, while the US has been pushing hard with sanctions against Russia, Germany is stuck in the middle, caught in a brutal energy crisis. The prices of gas and oil are soaring, and as Europe's economic powerhouse, Germany simply can't afford to sit back and watch their economy freeze. So what does Germany do? Instead of sticking to the US-led sanctions, Germany has made a bold decision. They're rebuilding their trade relationship with Russia. In 2025, Berlin has turned toward Moscow to ensure they have access to reliable energy sources. It's all about energy security for Germany now. The priority, keeping the economy running and homes heated regardless of the political fallout. But here's where it gets fascinating. This isn't just a matter of energy. It's a geopolitical move that could change the entire balance of power in Europe. By openly defying the US, Germany is sending a clear message that their future won't be dictated by Washington. And that's a game changer for global alliances. Now, what does this mean for you? If Germany shifts its loyalty toward Russia and away from the US, we're looking at massive changes in military cooperation, trade agreements, and even how European nations approach future global conflicts. But we want to hear from you. Is Germany's decision the right one? Do you think this will lead to a stronger Europe, or will it unravel existing alliances? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This is your space to air your opinions, and we want to hear it all. Stick around because we've got plenty more to explore, and trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Think about a time when you've been stuck in a situation where it feels like you're constantly walking on eggshells. No matter what you do, someone else holds all the cards. You try to play by their rules, follow the expectations, but nothing ever changes. Eventually, you realize it's not just hard, it's draining, and you begin to wonder, is it worth it? Is there another way? That's where Iran finds itself in 2025. For years, the US has been the boss, dictating the rules, calling the shots. With sanctions, embargoes, and endless demands, it's been a battle for Iran to even get ahead. Imagine if every time you tried to move forward, someone pulled the rug out from under you. It's exhausting. And it's not just about politics, it's about survival. But here's the twist, Iran's decided they've had enough. In 2025, they're making a bold move to secure their future, and they're doing it by building new bridges with China and Russia. This isn't just a political shift, it's a survival strategy. They're no longer relying on a system that has only hurt them. They're taking control of their own fate. Let's talk numbers. In the past year, trade between Iran and China shot up in the total value. Over $40 billion. Think about that. That's not pocket change. That's serious economic power that can change the game. And the military side, Iran and Russia are getting closer with more cooperation than ever before. No longer dependent on Western powers for defense, they've found strength in new alliances. But this isn't just about trade deals and military alliances, it's about pride, it's about Iran saying, we don't have to play by your rules anymore. For years, they've been waiting for a chance to rewrite their own story, and now it's happening. This isn't just politics, this is personal. How does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt like you needed to break away from a controlling influence in your life? What do you think this means for Iran's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I want to hear from you. What if you were told that the world's most powerful adversary to the US isn't just a threat, it's an unstoppable force building its empire from the shadows? Sounds dramatic, right? But it's happening right now as we speak. Russia, the country that once bowed to US influence, now stands firm against it. How did it go from following orders to rewriting the rules? Well, here's the kicker. As economic sanctions tighten around Moscow, Russia isn't flinching. In fact, they're thriving. Think about this. Imagine you're playing a game and the rules are stacked against you. Every move you make, they try to block you, but then you realize you don't have to play their game anymore. You create your own. And that's exactly what Russia's done. By developing alternative financial systems and pulling closer to China, India, and other BRICS members, Russia isn't just surviving, it's reinventing itself as a global superpower. But then there's the real twist. Russia is using this new power not just to challenge, but to dismantle US influence on the world stage. Every time Washington tightens its grip, Russia loosens its hold on Western control, aligning itself with other emerging powers, growing its strength in ways the US wasn't prepared for. The stakes, so much higher than we realize. With a financial system that could bypass US dominance, Russia's partnerships are reshaping global trade. In 2025, Russia's trade with China surged to over $120 billion. That's not just numbers on paper, folks. It's a shift in global power that demands attention. So what does this mean for us? What happens when a country like Russia, backed by an alliance of emerging powers, says, "We won't play by your rules anymore"? How does it affect the global economy? What about our daily lives, the gas we buy, the goods we consume, the very power we take for granted? As Russia's influence spreads, will the US lose its grip on global affairs? Could this be the tipping point we never saw coming? The world as we know it is about to change, and the clock is ticking. Here's the thing, Russia isn't just sitting back. They're actively creating a future where they hold the keys to the global economy. This is bigger than sanctions. It's about shaping the next chapter in global power. The question is, are we prepared for it? What's your take? Do you think Russia's new alliances will change the global landscape forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because this journey is just getting started. What if I told you the US is no longer the world's most powerful country and the new leader might surprise you? Sounds impossible, right? But as we stand in 2025, it's happening. And if you're not paying attention, you could be blindsided by the biggest shift in global power we've seen in over a century. Meet Alex. He's your everyday guy just trying to get through his day in New York City. He's not a billionaire, he's not a politician, but when he saw a headline flash on his phone, China's yuan overtakes the US. Dollar as global reserve currency, his world stopped. How could this be true? Didn't the US have the strongest economy, the most powerful military, and the most dominant currency on the planet? And yet here it was, China moving forward with a plan to dethrone the US as the world's superpower. But then Alex read deeper and the full picture emerged. It's not just about money anymore. China is advancing on all fronts. Its military is expanding aggressively into the South China Sea. Its tech industry is leaving Silicon Valley in the dust, and it's not just a small player anymore. China is building alliances with Russia, Iran, and a growing list of BRICS nations. They're reshaping the global economy, and the US is struggling to keep up. Now here's the kicker. The US has tried everything: sanctions, tech bans, military pressure, but instead of retreating, China is advancing. And those sanctions, they've only forced China to build alternative financial systems and trade routes that don't rely on the US at all. The dollar is being replaced, tech is evolving beyond Western control, and the global power map is being redrawn. If you thought the US was untouchable, think again. China's rise is inevitable, and the question is, how will this affect you? Your job, your savings, your security? So what does this mean for the future? What happens if China truly becomes the next superpower? Can the US hold onto its position, or is the world entering a new era? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. This is just the beginning of the story, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Picture this, you're sitting in a small cafe in Toronto sipping your coffee as snow gently falls outside the window. You've always felt safe knowing that Canada and the US share the longest unprotected border in the world. It's a relationship that's been there for as long as you can remember. But then one day you see a headline flash on your phone, Canada's new foreign policy, striking out on its own. Wait, Canada, the country that's always been the peaceful neighbor to the US, is making moves on the global stage that could change everything. No longer just a quiet partner, Canada is asserting itself. Meet Jason. He's a Toronto native, and for years, he never gave much thought to Canada's political relationship with its southern neighbor. That is, until he started seeing signs of something changing. But then, something incredible happened. Jason attended a lecture at a local university about Canada's shifting role in global politics. He learned that in 2025, Canada was stepping up its international presence, seeking new trade agreements and closer ties with countries like China and India. The relationship with the US had hit some rough patches, especially when it came to economic policies and trade disputes. Canada wasn't just playing the quiet second fiddle anymore, it was stepping into its own spotlight. The world was watching. For years, Canada has stood by while the US called the shots. And that's the story no one's telling you. Canada's new path isn't just about politics, it's about reclaiming its voice. The US might have its eyes set on global domination, but Canada is carving out its own future. What happens if Canada becomes a global powerhouse? Can it lead without being tethered to the US? Make sure to smash that like button if you want to see what comes next in Canada's bold move. If you missed our previous update on the rise of Filipinos in America's biggest cities, click the video on the screen. And also don't forget to subscribe. George Galloway signing out.